So it's carbohydrates day for the pigs. Been to the bakery, and I probably collect from the bakery between once and twice a week, and when I collect quite a significant amount. Probably given the equivalent of maybe 8 to 10 loaves of bread to these guys, and that'll be their food for the day. Now obviously they've got all this forage as well that gets mixed in with it. I think they've got a pretty good balanced diet. I would say 50% of the food that I give them is fruit and veg, 25% would be bread, and then 25% would be grains from a brewery, spent grains. And I would suggest that what I give them probably makes up 80% of their diet, and then the other 20 is forage from in there, bugs and acorns and nuts, and also grass and greenery, whatever they forage. And as you can see, the two little ones back there are coming on really well. They've made a great unit, these four, so I'm really happy with that. If you were watching my videos, you might be a little bit confused, because around 10 days, 2 weeks ago, I was talking about harvesting one of these pigs. And the reason that I haven't yet, even though, so just to give you a bit of, just to orientate you slightly. So we've got this alleyway that runs up our property, and on this side of it, we've got the pig wood, and on the other side, we've got our camp wood. Now in here is my apiary. You can't see it from here, but my apiary's up there where the bees will be, my compost loo and the camp, and now the butchery. So that's where we are. But the reason that I haven't slaughtered the pig yet is because the weather, the temperature has risen, and I want to basically hang her in close to fridge-like conditions. So I'm waiting for 24 hours when the temperature is going to get down below 7 degrees and hopefully stay there for a significant portion. So that's the only reason really why that's been delayed. So this morning I got up, we moved our hens out of the meadow from there, and we've put them in here. I've got a separate video on that, and I've also trimmed the goat's feet and the sheep's feet. I've got a separate video on that as well. I'm not sure which order they've been released, so whether this is up before those or whether they're up and then this. Either way, eventually the links to those will be down below. But the next job for me is to go and get something to eat. It's around 11:30, 12 o'clock. I'm quite hungry. Made quite an early start this morning to get all those jobs done. And then after lunch, what we're going to do is we're going to move the goats and the sheep across to this bottom paddock. Now, the reason being, they've done really well, actually. The ruminants, these guys have done really well on this grass. But you can see the patches where the chickens have been, and it really got hammered. So we're going to see if we can throw some grass seed on that today. We've got great weather for growing grass seed, but how long that's going to keep up and whether frosts are just going to come and kill everything, I don't know, but I can try. But as you can see here, look, this bottom paddock, this grass is looking amazing. I'm really happy with the state this is in. So I'm thinking if I can bring those guys down here for maybe 6 weeks, then that's going to take us right into December. And then if in December this top paddock looks as it does now, or perhaps even better, then I think we've got a really good shot of getting right through the winter with, reasonable ground conditions here. Now, all that said, it only takes 1 week of persistent heavy rain and we get muddy puddles, but we can only do what we can do. I've got no control over the weather. I've got no control over the subsurface of this ground. I've only got control over where we place the animals and how we tend to the ground. So I think that's going to be the best bet. One thing we have learned, my wife and I were having a chat this morning when we moved the chickens. I think next year we won't put the chickens in the meadow at all, because it's very easy to have a rose-tinted view of the future. And back in August and September, when this was all lush, high grass, we were like, well, we need to get the chickens in there to get it under control. Well, we didn't. We just didn't. And now, looking at how hard the chickens have hammered it, I think we'd have been better off just not putting the chickens in there at all, because we've got all this extra space. I always talk about how much grass we have here that we don't need. So that is going to be the plan next year, is just to keep the chickens moving without them going into the meadows, and keep the meadows for the ruminants, that is the goats and the sheep. So I'm going to go and get myself some soup, and then we'll come out and move those animals down into the other meadow. So I've come out to move the goats. I've just had some lovely soup. I've got my son with me.
Hi.
We're going to move the goats, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take a walk out of our property. Come on, girls. And at the back of our neighbour's land, they've got a little orchard, and they've got apples, pears and plum trees. And they basically, when we first moved in, they said, help yourself. There's far too much there for us. They can't use it all. So we're going to go and harvest some more apples, because all of our trees are pretty much gone over and finished. Our pear tree certainly has. And we are running a bit low on dried apple, which, well, you tell me, Torrin, do you like dried apple?
Yeah.
How much dried apple do you eat?
As much as I'm allowed.
So we need to harvest quite a bit of apple to put it in the dehydrator and dry it so that it's available all through the winter, because my kids and my wife, they eat it like sweets. So first thing we've got to do is move the goats. So hopefully they're going to just come to this bucket. Torrin, would you open the other gate for me, mate? And then shut the gate when they're all in. Well, that went very well. And I will give them, there's only a tiny bit of food left in here, and I'll let them have it, because I want them to know that if they come to the bucket, it's worth it. Go, you're not helping anyone there. I'll keep just a tiny bit for emergency goat capture operations, like we had the other day. Right, Toots, I'm going to pass you this out quickly. In fact, can you come in? I want to show you something. Ah, right. Interesting. Ask that question again.
Is that mushrooms?
That is mushrooms. And the reason I've asked you in, actually, and I think these are the same, but they're too small for me to tell, is I wanted to show you some mushrooms over here, mate.
Yeah.
Down here, we've got what I believe to be velvet shank mushrooms, which are a delicious wild edible. Let's have a look. And yes, I'm fairly confident. I'm not 100% confident yet. I'll need to have a closer look. But I am super confident now that these are velvet shank mushrooms. They are a wild relation of shiitake mushrooms that are cultivated for food. So, good find?
Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah.
So that's a nice find, some velvet shank mushrooms. I'm not going to bother harvesting these, there's just too few of them. But I do know that we also have these growing in our wood up there. So they're a winter mushroom, so it's a bit early for them. And they do have a poisonous lookalike called the funeral bell. But the funeral bell has a ring. That's one of the ways you tell them apart. Also, the funeral bell is a summer mushroom. I've actually done a video on velvet shanks where I talk all about the ID features in much more detail, and I will try and link that down below. So maybe go and check that one out if that's something that you're interested in. Next job then, that's the goats across. We're going to drop off the rest of these bags of bread. Thank you, son. You're going to carry one that I collected from the bakery earlier. We're going to pop the last of these in the bin that we've got dedicated for the purpose next to our chickens, and then we're off to the orchard. Okay, so this is the wildflower meadow that belongs to my neighbour. That's the border of our properties there. That's our camp wood. You can probably just see the top of one of our chicken trailers there, and that thatched house is our house, with the little bit of smoke coming off that smaller roof. So that's our property there, and that's the boundary, is that fence, that hedge, sorry, that hedge and that hedge. So we just come through this wildflower meadow, and then at the far end of it is you can see the row of trees there. Well, that's the line of the river where we get crayfish. And just behind this hedge is the orchard that we're walking towards. So here we are up at the orchard, and as you can see, just from the sheer number of windfalls, there's a tremendous amount of spoilage or wastage, or call it what you will. It's not that nothing's going to eat it. Something's going to eat it, but that something might end up being worms, maggots. Wasps will have had their fair share. But obviously, you know, our neighbours are quite happy for us to help ourselves to the ones that we pick. So we've got one bag full. Should we have a look in the bag, Tom?
Yep.
And they are... What do they taste like, Tom?
They're very sweet.
Are they?
Yeah, they're the size.
Because they look like...
They're the size of cooking apples, but they taste like normal apples.
Yeah, they're definitely eaters, aren't they?
Yeah.
But they look like cooking apples because they're so big. But we're going to get them back and dehydrate them, but we're going to probably fill another bag or two first. Sound right?
Yep.
So that's it. We've got our bags of apples. We're going to take them home now. We're going to dehydrate them. I've got a couple of parasol mushrooms to dehydrate as well. And you can see we're right next to the river here. Had a lot of rain, so it's flowing quite well. And that's where we catch our crayfish in the hot days, in the summer months. We also come up here for some wild garlic. There's wild garlic that grows all along the river. How did we do, Tom?
Good.
So what's the next job?
Don't know. Taking my shoes off.
Do you want to set up a little conveyor belt, me and you working together, get them all ready and in the dehydrator?
Sure.
So we've got our dehydrator here. We're going to... Do you know where the machine is, Tar? We've got a little machine that we got, again, on free cycle. We got it for free. And Torrin will show it to you now. It's a great little bit of kit. Do you want to explain it?
You can.
Yeah? You hold it up then. So it's just an old-fashioned peeler. They might be a bit big, these apples, mightn't they? So it grips onto the counter with a suction thing there.
That thing comes back all the way over here.
I think it might just about get on. So you stab the apple
But the core might be a bit too
onto
big.
these spikes. Oh yeah, perfect. Get him on there, top. And then what do you do?
Then you just spin the handle. Now start peeling it. It's not working the best with this one. It's a bit big. There we go.
And then as it goes through, it pushes the core through. Take him right through. Pushes the core through.
There.
And decores it as well.
On normal apples, it will pull the core out fine, and then you have coil of apple.
Which is perfect for the dehydrator because it's already sliced. So all we will do now
is grab a knife, and then if you cut down the line, you have rings, and then you can put them in a dehydrator. And then if you have a little bit of space left, and normally you won't have full rings at the end always, you can cut them up into small pieces to put in all the gaps.
And I think one apple is going to do more than one tray, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're going to have quite a lot of dehydrating in our future. Do you think?
Yep.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, we're not going to dehydrate them all.
Aren't we?
No.
Why is that?
Why not take too long, and two, they won't last that long.
Well, I think they would last.
Not all of them.
Because they'll be where? So where's all the peel going to go, Tar? And the cores?
Well, it can go to the pigs or the animals, but if you rinse it first, then I like to eat it. sometimes.
Even better. Right, let's get the rest of these in. We'll work on that together, yeah? And I just wanted to share with you guys, I've also got these 2 parasol mushrooms that are also going to be dehydrated. They're not my favourite mushrooms, but they might be my favourite dehydrating mushrooms. And I'll tell you for why. These, of all the mushrooms that I dehydrate, these are by far the best mushrooms that I can dehydrate and then put on things like pizza without rehydrating them, just straight as they are. Already, straight from the jars, dehydrated like that, put them straight on top of, so anything like a pizza, it doesn't have to go in a liquidy sauce, and they are delicious that way. So I do really like to dehydrate these, so we're going to get these in the machine as well. So we've got the dehydrator full. We've got one layer of our parasol mushrooms, and then everything else is apple. And I have to say, we barely scratched the surface of the 2 bags of apple that we brought down. So we've got some waste here to go to the pigs or the chickens. And we have got a lot of dehydrating in our future. This is basically going to be running 24/7 now for the next week or 2 to process as many apples as we can before there's none left to process because they've gone over or whatever it might be. And that hopefully will get us enough apples to get these 2, my son and my wife, through the winter. Do you think we've got a chance?
No.
So I will wrap it up there and speak to you guys soon.